Delayed the landing of the U.S. space shuttle Atlantis by 90 minutes. The shuttle will now attempt to land at Florida's Kennedy Space Center in about 2 hours from now. Atlantis is coming home a day early. The space agency NASA cut short the shuttle's mission because of a steering system leak and a forecast for stormy weather at the Florida landing site. The craft was on an 8-day docking mission with the Russian space station MIR. CNN International plans to bring you live coverage of the landing of Shuttle Atlantis when that happens. Shuttle Atlantis is heading towards home. After a successful docking with the Russian Space Center MIR, Atlantis hopes to touch down in Florida just over an hour from now. Dense fog, however, has already delayed the landing once and could again. CNN's John Holliman explores this amazing space odyssey.
Unless you really care about the space program, pictures like these might not mean very much to you. A Russian space station, built back when the Soviet Union was the arch-enemy of the United States, as seen from the U.S. space shuttle. And a picture of astronauts waving to the Russians from windows on the roof of the shuttle. From the very beginning, in the 1950s, the Americans and the Soviets were enemies in space, running the space race to prove who could launch the heaviest payloads, translate that powerful warheads, into the skies over the country of the other. But over the years, something changed. The Soviets, faced with rising costs of defending against multiple warhead U.S. missiles, and the U.S., with similar escalating costs, decided to stop racing and start working together. Since that decision, Americans have flown to MIR, Russian for peace, 4 times. They've hooked up 3 times, and as of now, there will be an American living on board MIR for the entire foreseeable future. Consider this. The commander of MIR, who gave big bear hugs to the commander of Atlantis, was trained to fly military jets against the United States. And the same could be said for the shuttle commander and pilot. While the shuttle and MIR flew over Bosnia, the Middle East, and other world hotspots, the 2 crews were sitting down to dinner together. And in science laboratories aboard both ships, major scientific discoveries are being made. From contact lenses that you can wear for months at a time, to major advances in fighting disease, from diabetes to AIDS, things are happening in space. And the future, if nothing changes and the governments down below, will be even more promising. The Russians and Americans, Europeans, Japanese, and Canadians are building huge pieces of space hardware in factories which once turned out weapons of war. It's a program designed to force the world's former enemies into friendship, which has to last well into the next century. Something to think about when the pretty pictures from space fill up your TV screen. John Holliman, CNN reporting.
Space Shuttle Atlantis will stay in orbit 1 extra day. NASA has postponed landing due to dense fog and clouds at the landing site. Atlantis successfully docked with the Russian space station MIR and left behind 1 U.S. astronaut. Because of a hydraulic system leak, the shuttle must operate under stricter landing rules regarding weather conditions. And that's a look at the hour's headlines. I'm Relitsa Vasilova. Thanks for joining us. Larry King is up next.
This is CNN International Breaking News.
The landing of the Space Shuttle Atlantis in Florida has been postponed for a day, and in the aftermath of the scrub of the landing, there was a problem with the shuttle's cargo bay doors, which could have caused NASA managers to land the space shuttle in California or some other emergency landing strip. What's happening at this moment is that the cargo bay door problem, which seemed to be very serious about 10 minutes ago, may be on the way to being solved. We're going to listen in to NASA's commentary on the mission from commentator Rob Navius.
To stand by and run, waiting 10 seconds between each GPC. Once you have 2, 3, and 4 in run, then you have a go to initiate Block 12 nominally.
All right, they're not talking about the cargo bay door problem, which we understand has probably been solved. Let me just sort of go back and talk through what happened, and I'll use my shuttle model to illustrate what happened. When the shuttle prepares to land, one of the steps that the astronauts do is to close the cargo bay doors. There's a computer program which does that. The doors were closed 5 or 6 hours ago in preparation for landing. And then in the case of a scrubbed landing, which is what we had today, the astronauts were told to use the computer program that would open these doors automatically. The computer refused to do that, the reason being that it detected that one of the latches, and there are 12 of them that are inside here holding the doors together for landing, refused to open automatically, or at least the computer got an indication from a switch in there that it wasn't opening automatically. And so what NASA did, with the doors still closed, was they sent astronaut Linda Godwin from the crew cabin down through this tunnel into the Space Hab module, and she can see through a viewing port up to that latch that the computer told her was stuck. Her looking out the window with binoculars convinced her the latch was open. And so then the astronauts went through a manual procedure, and at the time that I sat down at the desk here, that procedure was either underway. What they wanted to know was whether, when they tried to manually force the latches open, if the cargo bay doors would open just slightly. And it appeared from what I was listening to before coming down to the CNN International News Center was that that procedure was underway. Maybe we'll take another quick listen to NASA and see if they're talking about that. Okay, I'm told by our producer, Mark Gomage, that they're not saying anything at this moment, but mission managers there had a few moments of concern over whether they were going to have to land the shuttle with the cargo bay doors
Atlantis'
somewhere.
payload bay doors are again open, and they are in good shape, as are all the latches on the payload bay doors. The reopening of the payload bay doors was temporarily interrupted by the indication of a failure to open indication on one of the 4 sets of latches along the center line of the payload bay doors. Those latches had in fact opened, but it is believed that the failure of a micro switch that activates a sensor to feed that information to the onboard general purpose computers resulted in a no open indication, and the payload bay door opening process was temporarily halted. Flight Director Jeff Bantle conferred with his team of engineers here in the Mission Control Center, and the Mechanical Systems Officer in particular, who determined that the doors were just fine and that the latches had in fact opened. So carefully and cautiously, the procedure was reinitiated to open the doors, and the payload bay doors are now open. Again, no problem at all with the payload bay doors themselves or the latches associated with those doors, simply what is believed to be a micro switch problem that failed to produce a latch open indication to the onboard computers for Atlantis' astronauts. With that out of the way, the astronauts are now pressing ahead with the rest of their deorbit preparation back-out procedures, their landing opportunities having been waived off for the day.
So, what that all means, in case you weren't able to get it completely, is that the astronauts are back on schedule to do a landing. The first opportunity for landing would be 1200 GMT tomorrow at the Kennedy Space Center, but the weather there is expected to still be unacceptable tomorrow. The most likely place that the astronauts will land will be Edwards Air Force Base in California, where a landing team is setting up shop as we speak to be prepared to do the procedures you have to do to make the shuttle safe after it lands anywhere back here on Earth. But the news is good. After being fairly tense for about an hour with this problem getting the payload bay doors open, they have to be open if the astronauts are going to stay in space for an extended period of time, because their being open helps the heating and cooling system on the shuttle with a couple of radiators that are out here that do a lot of things, including produce water for the astronauts to drink. They'd be out of water in about 4 hours if they hadn't been able to get the doors open. But as you just heard, the doors are open again. And one thing that is for sure is when the shuttle lands, whether it's tomorrow or a little bit later, the micro switches which told the computer the bad information will be gone over with a fine-tooth comb. That concludes our live breaking news coverage. Back to Larry King with House Speaker Newt Gingrich and some animals entertaining here on CNN International.
This has been CNN International Breaking News.
Atlantis is arriving back on Earth. It's expected to touch down at Edwards Air Force Base in California in about 10 minutes from now. You're looking at live pictures of that, and the shuttle is just there in the top left-hand corner of your screen if you can see it. Please stay with us.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, this is John Holloman at CNN Center, welcoming our viewers in the United States and all around the world. The shuttle Atlantis is streaking through the skies over southern Oregon and northern California at this moment, 3 minutes away from landing at Edwards Air Force Base.
Houston, on at the 180.
2 of the 3 auxiliary power units aboard have been turned on and are operating to help the pilot, Kevin Chilton, and Commander Rick Searfoss steer the shuttle to a landing on runway 22 at Edwards. You can see it has made its final turn to landing now. This will have the shuttle coming in basically from south to north on the runway. Final minutes of landing will be interesting since there's concern about the power units and the possible lack of a backup power unit if something happens to the 2 systems that are designed to land the ship. Commander Chilton is completing a left turn to line up with the runway right now. You can see that left turn in progress. During this mission, the shuttle crew has accomplished a lot. When it left more than 9 days ago, there were 6 crew members aboard, but the crew is now only 5. The major task of the trip to drop off astronaut Shannon Lucid aboard Russia's MIR space station, orbiting more than 240 miles above the Earth.
Runway inside Houston.
Astronaut and now cosmonaut Lucid.
Again, 210 at 5 knots.
They're telling the commander what the winds are like on the runway, only 5 knots, which is very good because the shuttle needs calm winds to land at this point. Astronaut and now cosmonaut Lucid may be in our audience for this landing coverage today. We got a call from the Russian Space Agency saying that agency wanted to make sure CNN International was carrying the landing today, and they have the capability to broadcast it live to MIR.
Will soon be flaring up Atlantis' nose to bleed off any excess energy prior to the dropping of the landing gear by pilot Rick Searfoss.
We'll watch to see the landing gear come down. By the way, CNN will be talking with Shannon Lucid in her first interview from MIR next Wednesday. It'll happen at 9:35 Eastern Time, which is 14:35 GMT. Another major part of the mission this week was a spacewalk by astronauts Linda Godwin and Rich Clifford, who were outside MIR for about 6 hours. Payload Commander Ron Sega was in charge of managing the spacewalk and the unloading of more than 2 tons of supplies taken from the Space Hab and Atlantis' cargo bay,
flare up the nose,
and moved on to MIR. There comes the landing gear. It was something that there was some concern about earlier. Wanted to make sure that landing gear would come down. We're just seconds from touchdown right now. We'll watch the last couple of seconds before landing. You can see the sun coming up over the Mojave Desert behind the shuttle.
Main gear touchdown. Pilot Rick Searfoss now deploying the drag chute. Nose gear touchdown. Atlantis now rolling out on runway 22 at Edwards Air Force Base to wrap up a 3.8 million mile mission to establish a permanent U.S. presence in space.
As Atlantis touches down, it has been around the world 144 times. It has traveled 3.8 million miles, most of that in space, and has been away from this planet for 9 days, 5 hours, 15 minutes, and 37 seconds. Doesn't look too much the worse for wear. NASA plans its next shuttle mission to lift off on May the 17th. That will be Shuttle Endeavour, which will go up for 9 days. We'll listen to
Welcome back, Atlantis. Congratulations on successfully delivering Shannon and also completing the first approach and landing from the new Mission Control Center.
It feels good to be home, Bill, and I appreciate all of your help. I'd hate to be in Phil Engelhoff's shoes. It's going to be tough to pick the person to hang the plaque on this mission. Great work.
Hey, Houston, Atlantis, ATU number 3 is coming off.
All right, the astronauts are down safe and sound. CNN will continue its coverage of Shannon Lucid's mission aboard MIR for the 5 months she's there. That ends our coverage of the landing of Space Shuttle Atlantis, which from all we could tell was flawless. John Holloman, CNN reporting.
This has been CNN International Breaking News.